Welcome to the Native American Archives section's 20 Years of NAAS interview series. This series features conversations with past section chairs, reflecting on their leadership and experiences. The Native American Archives section began in 2005 when archivists at the SAA annual meeting in New Orleans petitioned to form what was first called the Native American Archives Roundtable. On August 13, 2005, the SAA Council unanimously approved its creation, and David L. George Shango Jr. became the first chair, helping launch a space dedicated to strengthening tribal archives and centering Indigenous voices in the archival profession. Over the years, the Roundtable grew in size and influence, eventually becoming the Native American Archives section, continuing its commitment to advocacy, education, and community. Through these interviews, we honor that history and explore the stories of those who have guided us along the way. Hello, and welcome to the 20 Years of NAAS interview series. My name is Jack Schmidt, the NAAS secretary, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Gina Rappaport. Now to introduce Gina. Gina is the archivist for photograph collections and head archivist at the Smithsonian Institution's National Anthropological Archives. She joined the Smithsonian in 2009 following earlier work as a project archivist with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Pribilof Project Office, where she co-authored the Pribilof Islands, a guide to photographs and illustrations, a key resource on historical visual materials related to the Aleutian people. Gina has also held project archivist roles with the University of Washington, the National Park Service, and the Winthrop Group. She holds a BA in History from the University of Washington and an MA in History and Archives Management from Western Washington University. Her research and professional interests focus on archival theory and practice, particularly the management of photographic collections and the development of respectful, community-informed protocols for the care of native cultural heritage and non-native institutions. Gina served as NAAS Vice Chair in 2013 to 14 and Chair in 2014 to 15. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you.
Of course.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Is there anything I missed?
No, that was pretty good.
Okay, great. Well, just to jump right into things, that's a little bit of your background, but we'd love to know specifically more to start about your pathway into the archives. You spent much of your career working in this intersection of anthropology, photography, and archives. How did you specifically land in archival work, and what continues to ground your practice today?
Yeah, well, I came to archives through an interest in history. I studied history as an undergrad, and I was pretty clear in my mind that I didn't want to go into academia. And I found myself doing a lot of research in archives, and I just found it fascinating doing historical research. And so I kind of pursued that. I spoke with a lot of archivists, and they said, "Oh, well, you need to, get a master's degree, and if you want to go into this field." So I went to grad school, and it was like a perfect fit for me. I did project work for about 6 years before I ended up here at the National Anthropological Archives. And I didn't have much exposure to or knowledge of Indigenous archives until I came to this job. The National Anthropological Archives has, obviously, it's an anthropology focus, but we collect the papers of anthropologists and anything that documents the world's cultures. We have a very large collection. This sort of one of the strengths of our collection is Native North America, ethnographic material, photography, etc. So it's like all of our archives, almost all of it relates to Indigenous communities. And so, it became clear to me very early on that this was something that I needed to learn about. I immediately joined the Native American Archives Roundtable. It was a roundtable at the time, and sort of started going from there, and working with a lot of Indigenous researchers that come to the archives and so forth. So I think what really grounds me, I mean, I love processing collections. I love, other aspects of um, archival work, but the main thing that keeps me going are the researchers. That's what really grounds me is, how can I assist people find what they need, and connect communities to collections. So that's sort of a little bit about how I got here.
Certainly. And as a fellow processing archivist, I can absolutely understand all of that as well. Specifically, you now touched on you're joining NAAS as another
Mhm.
pivotal point there. And you, of course, eventually found yourself in leadership here in NAAS, serving as vice chair and eventually chair. What would you say the section focused on during that period, the 2013 to 15, and what felt most urgent at the time?
Yeah, I can recall. So I think I joined the steering committee in like 2011,
Mhm.
for the roundtable, and there was a lot of focus on the protocols and
Mhm.
sort of promotion of the protocols and talking about the protocols. Um, some of my predecessors, or one of my predecessors, Ali Krebs and George Shongo. I mean, they were really just trying to, um, I think, just raise awareness of the section. And by the time I came along, I think there was just a lot of discussion on how can we help people understand, um, what it means to implement the protocols. So I think we were at that time, it didn't happen until some years later, but at that time we were talking a lot about case studies and trying to publish case studies and that kind of thing. So that's sort of my memory of what we were really focusing on, trying to
Cer-
develop, SAA sessions. This was in the early days of ATOM, so that was sort of just starting to ramp up, the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums.
Mhm.
Um, and so there was a lot going on. There was a lot of, things were fairly new. And of course there was the trying to get, um, SAA to acknowledge and endorse the protocol. So there was that too.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are all quite significant. Specifically, that raising awareness and making, the push for SAA to adopt the protocols,
Hmm.
right? Uh, Now, thinking on both that period then and then where we are now within the section, how have you seen NAS evolve since your term then? What commitments do you think have remained consistent? I know you mentioned case studies. We're always, working on
Yeah.
those as well, but mhm.
Well, I think it's tremendous. I mean, how much
Mhm.
it's grown. The fact that there are way more Indigenous archivists involved in in SAA and in this section and or this yeah this section. Um, I think, with it, there was a summit, I think, at the 2015 SAA, um, on the protocols, and that's, I think, out of that is really what forced the case studies through, or that sort of evolution. Um, and just since then, I've just seen, each successive leader just do more and more, really tangible things. Because in the early days it was all just we were just talking about everything, and then started seeing things coming out. I mean, the actual case studies and, other projects and programs, and so I mean I am becoming a section and no longer just a round table. So, and one of the most active sections that I'm, from my impressions of it in SAA. So I think that's wonderful.
Well, certainly. Yes, we can absolutely speak to the growth of the section, moving from the round table to the section. And I think our audience here today is, another very tangible result of that.
Mhm.
Um, Specifically, coming back to your experience and expertise with photographic collections,
Mhm.
your work is long centered on photographs within archives and photographic archives. What would you say makes photographic collections especially complex when it comes to description, access, and ethical care?
Well, I think historically, photographs have not been, I mean, there's kind of this double standard with photographs. There's, we have provenance, we have original order, but the way that's interpreted with respect to photograph collections is sort of all over the map. And what happens is things get disassociated if we're not looking at a collection as a collection. We're just looking at it as like an image library, and we catalog everything individually by subject, but we don't associate things. That's a major problem, because just like any archival collection, the relationships between items, the context of the whole, provides so much information. But when we disassociate um, images and just decide, okay, we're going to organize these by subject, for example,
Mhm.
we lose information. And in the archive I'm in, it's a very old archive, and at least for the Smithsonian, it's the oldest archive, and our photo collections, early on were not managed archivally, and so a lot of information um, about individuals, names, and so forth. I mean, there's just a lot of information that's gotten lost or muddied through not a- attending to, what it means to apply those principles to a different. I mean, they're still archival collections.
Mm.
So why have historically? I mean, I understand historically why, and I think things are changing now. People are understanding. Okay, I can item level catalog these, but I still need to describe them fully in a finding aid, kind of a thing. So
Mm.
uh, that's my messy explanation.
Certainly. And then also when thinking about these collections, uh, there's also a significant amount of work with Native communities.
Mhm.
And so, you've worked with Native communities to develop protocols for respectful care of cultural heritage, held in non-Native institutions
Mhm.
like Smithsonian. So what has this meaningful collaboration looked like in practice?
Well, I mean, it it really takes all forms and
Mhm.
shapes. It's very much attending to the particular concerns or questions or needs of a community. I mean, each interaction is going to be very different,
Sure.
but unfortunately, because our archive is so large and we are such a small staff, a lot of what we're doing is reactionary. So it's when someone contacts us and says, I'd like to talk to you about this, or I have concerns about that. We're very responsive to that. That's sort of that's why we're here. That's what we want to be doing. Um, we're not in a position so much where we can go out and make that first contact and say, hey, we'd love to talk to you about these collections that we have. I mean, we do that sometimes, but we just haven't had the resources to do that more fully. So a lot of it is just responding to researchers who come to us. For example, we just got a request for a photograph, and the researcher, um, a photograph of someone's, ancestor, and the researcher wants to talk to us about proper, what her concerns around proper representation and that kind of thing. And, we're so open to that. We're so wanting that kind of engagement. Um, So really what it looks like is just being open to talking about people's concerns and implementing protocols where necessary. We have certain policies like we don't post images of human remains online and, um, a variety of things. So, yeah.
Understood. And specifically touching on the notion of this like reactionary response, right, that you find yourself in. Um, just touching on like the institutional
Yeah.
realities of this
So
work.
that's, yeah,
Mhm.
that is, I'm sorry, that's one of our, my major, or it's just a large disappointment that we don't have the resources to do things um, more proactively.
Would you say that that's the biggest challenge that you guys face in this work, or is there, something else that comes to mind, particularly for like large or even, federal institutions when it comes to the Smithsonian?
Well, everything moves very slowly in the federal institutions. There's regular time and then there's federal time.
Mhm.
So, for example, projects that I wanted to do, 10 years ago, I may have planted a seed, but it's like only now coming to fruition kind of a thing. So that can be very frustrating. Um, and just a lot of uh, fighting for funds, struggling to get funds to bring in to hire people to do work. I mean, it's kind of it's classic archives being sort of chronically underfunded and understaffed, but those are really our challenges here as well in the federal system. Uh,
Understandable.
yeah.
So the pacing as well as the resources.
Yes.
Um, so that of course makes a lot of sense as well when we're discussing how your own journey began in project-based work. I'm also finding myself in project-based work as I build up
Hmm.
my career. Uh, so transitioning from that, thinking about our new and coming NAAS members, and for other just new and emerging professionals in the field. Uh, do you have any advice that you might offer about engaging ethically, sustainably in this work?
Yes, I think that's really important to, I mean, I'm hoping that people are, I mean, I feel like archival education is um, and has raised awareness a lot more about these issues, but I think just coming with a willingness to reflect upon your own positionality, um, reflect upon. Um, I mean, I think when I started, I didn't realize that I could allow for different epistemologies in this work. Um, that is one of the most important things that I've learned is that you know proper archival work doesn't look like one thing. It looks like whatever you need it to be. And so yeah, that's kind of
Mm.
um I mean just being self-reflective, understanding your assumptions,
Mhm.
being a listening without judgment. Um these are all these are all things that are important in any archival work. Um and
Cool.
so
Yeah. And this will be my last question, then I'll
okay.
open things up to the audience here if we have any further questions for you. But coming back to Nas
Hmm.
and looking forward towards the future, uh, as you look ahead, where do you consider NAS's responsibilities, what it carries within SAA and the broader archival profession, the direction that NAS should take itself in?
Um, I mean, I feel like sort of anything is possible. It seems like, I mean, when I've seen the
Mhm.
progress of the section, um, I mean, I think raising awareness is a key responsibility. I think helping people understand what collaboration means, what it looks like, um, and to some extent, cultural competency. Um, but I really, you know, I have to admit that I generally only attend SAA now. When it comes to DC, I have to sort of, because I can only get funding for maybe one conference a year, and I'll usually go to ATOM. So I think, um, more communication between ATOM and NAS, I think, is probably something that, well, I know it is happening, and I think that's a great thing, especially because ATOM has grown so much now, and I think, um, they can really speak to each other. So I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but I just, I see the responsibilities being the same as in the beginning, is to raise
Mhm.
awareness and help people do the right thing in their archives.
Mhm.
So
Of course.
yeah.
Well, thank you again, Gina. And the floor is open to any questions that we might have among the audience here today. So we'll wait for just a moment, pause to see if anything comes into the chat. But while we do that, I want to thank you again for your time and joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. And oh, looks like we have a comment from Anita. Love your messaging and wisdom. Okay. So with that, I think we're going to transition to the next phase of our session today. I believe we'll have a upcoming conversation. So thank you again.